couple weeks ago, I alluded to the fact about altars and how that it's God who receives the offering. And I said that, there were times in the Old Testament that you see that, and there's also, that Jesus actually receives our offering. You go to 1 Chronicles chapter 21, verse 25. It says, David built an altar to the Lord there and sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. He called on the Lord, and the Lord answered him with fire from heaven on the altar of burnt offering. I want you to remember that part. This is 1 Chronicles chapter 21, verse 25. But remember what I said there. That the Lord answered him with fire from heaven on the altar of burnt offerings. So there's times that God tells men to build an altar, right? And this was when David had gotten himself in a pickle because he counted the men of Israel when he wasn't supposed to. He was supposed to have faith, right? And the Lord and God didn't even speak to him. He sent the seer, Gad, to go talk to him because it's like, right now, we're apart, right? And he goes and buys Aruna's threshing floor, gives a price. Not only that, but he builds an altar, brings a sacrifice, and then when God answers with fire, he goes and sacrifices again, right? This is telling you that these men, they understood the purpose of giving and offering. And sometimes there's times that men chooses to actually build an altar. Genesis chapter 35, verse 3 says, Then come, let us go to Bethel, where I will build an altar to God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and who has been with me wherever I have gone. So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods they had, and the rings in their ears, and Jacob buried them under the oak at Shechem. Then they set out, and the terror of God fell on the towns all around them, so that no one pursued them. Okay? So, and then it goes on later on in the same chapter, and it says that he put up a pillar, and then he did a water offering, and then he put oil offering on top of it. So these are men that understand the principles that are here. And remember I said that this was all by inspiration. All this in the Bible is all by inspiration. And what does that mean? That means that God, through the Holy Spirit, told them what's there and what's going on. You wonder sometimes when you listen to Paul in the New Testament, where does he get this stuff? And it's not out of the rabbinical mindset. It's not out of the rabbinical mindset where he had a teaching already that was developed. It's the Holy Spirit inspiring, just like all of us, right? There's things that he tells you, you're like, that's not even in the Bible, Lord. What are you talking about? And then he proves it out as it goes, right? And then now I'll go to Hebrews chapter 7, verse 5 through 10. Usually I don't give this many scriptures, but it was because it was building up on this principle. And it's not nothing new. It's not nothing that I'm, just found out. Hebrews 7, verse 5 through 10, it says, And indeed those who are of the sons of Levi who receive the priesthood have a commandment to receive tithes from people according to the law, that is, from their brethren, though they have come from the loins of Abraham. But he whose genealogy is not derived from them received tithes from Abraham and blessed him who had the promises. Now beyond all contradiction, the lesser is blessed by the better. Here mortal men receive tithes, right here. We receive tithes. We receive an offering, right? But there he receives them. There he receives them. Of whom it is witnessed that he lives. Even Levi, who receives tithes, paid tithes through Abraham, so to speak, for he was still in the loins of his father when Melchizedek met him. So there's a foundation of this whole thing of giving. Now remember I said to go ahead and remember the first verse, the first chapter and verse, I gave it to you, right? And I'll just quote, then they, I'm sorry, where are we at? Verse 26, David built an altar to the Lord there and sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. He called on the Lord, and the Lord answered him with fire from heaven on the altar of burnt offering. Well, check this out. Go to Revelations 8. And you see this one instance. In Revelation verse 3, it says, another angel who had a golden censer came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense to offer, with the prayers of all God's people, on the golden altar in front of the throne. The smoke of the incense, together with the prayers of God's people, went up before God from the angel's hand. Then the angel took the censer filled with fire from the altar and hurled it on the earth. And there came peals of thunder, rumblings, flashes of lightning, and earthquake. Wherever I see fire and it's talking about God, I know that's God is where that is at. And this gives, every time you've ever seen anything with peals of thunder, lightnings, fire, smoke, like that, it's always the presence of God. So here, it's telling you that all these things that you're giving, because I mean, you go back to Acts 10, with Cornelius, he meets the angel. The angel comes to him, and he says, what does he say? He says, your prayers and your giving to the poor have come up as a memorial, right? So it's a thing where it changes from the physical, and it goes into the spiritual, and it becomes something, and it becomes a prayer. It becomes a prayer. So all these things that you're saying I'm giving, and it's money. It's not money. It's going up to God as a prayer. And there's times, because there's not only one time that the angels are going to throw things down. You think you just see this one time, but if there's an altar up there, it's for regular use. And there's those angels that attend to it. They're regularly attending and throwing down answers to prayers. Times when you're giving, and it's full with purpose, it's going up as a prayer. So, a lot of people, they don't get the concept, but I'm telling you, if our patriarchs have this concept and they understood the purpose of an altar, in our lives, especially when we're having hardships, we need to understand that principle too. We naturally make an altar here when we give you can give an offering anytime you want to. We don't slay animals anymore. That's just not, where it's at. But we do it in with something that seems to be precious, because we all have to have it. It's money.